Hello and welcome to the channel. As always, like the video, and if you enjoyed the story, leave a comment on if you would want more. This fan fiction was not created by me, but in the description there is a link to the fanfic so you can show your support to the creator and read along. Without any more delay, let's dive into the story.
Aizawa. Aizawa, apologies for bothering you, but I'm afraid I need to ask a favor. I was planning to teach some basic rescue exercises as my first class, but I now believe it would be prudent to change to a combat-oriented lesson due to recent discoveries. Aizawa, combat? What pray tell necessitates a change like that? All Might looked up from his phone sadly, in the lake where he had found what he had dreaded after his conversation with the Midoriyas. All Might, on the job casualties. One with relation to a student's personal life. He didn't think he'd ever be able to forget the images of the cold eyes upon such young heroes' faces. Thank you, for trying, was all the blonde could think to say as he walked off to report the bodies to the police. Ah! Midoriya couldn't help screaming as he plummeted through the sky towards the ground, quickly slamming his hand onto his watch and being engulfed within green light. It died down as quick as it appeared, and in the greenette's place a taller, on-fire humanoid appeared, screams of fear quickly turning to ones of delight as a flame shot into the ground and he veered all over the place in a shaky flight. He got far too close to crashing more times than he cared to admit, and it quickly became apparent flight was not something pyroform was inherently designed for. He could fly fine enough with chiller, but he had had the idea of heat propulsion in his mind for a while. He couldn't remember exactly where the idea had come from. He was too busy trying not to shatter anyone's windows. Vaguely he recalled a conversation, or in reality, shouting match, with Bakugo where the idea might have been mentioned. He knew the blonde had tried a version of it during the quirk tests Aizawa held. The flaming teen shook his head, deciding to take into the sky. He rocketed up higher and higher. As he reached the starry sky he let his flames die out, allowing him to plummet. As he fell, he thought about the events of the past day, specifically the school day. He had been understandably preoccupied at the time he had made it home with the whole killer robot business and then the new apartment, news that was still only halfway to being fully realized in the alien teen's head. All of it had pulled his attention away from another major event of the day. He had friends, now. Ones that were nice and actually seemed to want to be friends with him, for him, no strings attached. A boy had tried to befriend him a month after his Omnitrix was revealed to his last class, but he had turned out to just want to try and get the watch for himself. Oh, that was solid tarmac fast approaching him. He should probably dodge that. His flaming hands quickly shot out and a stream of flames hit the ground, however he made a miscalculation and had left it too long for the force to actually save him in time, resulting in a violent slam against the road. Izuku! Are you okay? His mother rushed over worried as he stood up. Midnight trailed just behind her, looking only slightly less worried. I'm stunned but alright. Pyro is one of my more resilient guys. I think I could tank a building collapsing on me if I needed to. Midoriya muttered to himself, trying to just ignore the many small jolts of pain the crash landing caused. He could only presume it would be much worse in any other body, except perhaps Crystallize and Colossus. Pyroform's magma-based body, however, didn't leave many places for pain receptors in his nerves, so it was much less of a big deal, pain-wise. My own fault for getting distracted. Thank you very much for letting me have a quick test of the city, Miss Midnight. Said woman just made a sort of odd salute with two of her fingers barely pressed against her head. No problem. You'd have to at some point, might as well be now while someone can supervise. Just don't go being naughty and sneaking out in the middle of the night, that's my job. Both Midoriyas could only stare at the teacher. She just winked back at them before turning and walking away. The younger greenette transformed back to his human form and sat on the ground, glad the only carry-on effect to his regular state was the wind still being knocked out of him. His thoughts turned back to what they had been in the air, thinking about the conversations he had had with all his classmates before he had got home. He then froze up a little as he recalled Yayarozo's unexpected hug. She had seemed embarrassed, but mostly for the boy, as if she thought she had done something he was against. It had certainly caught him off guard, but it was nice, especially after what they talked about. He shook his head lightly. He'd just have to talk to her about it the next day. Come on, Izuku, if we go back now we can test out. The woman hesitated for a moment. Our new kitchen. If you want some proper dinner we should go now. Yes, ma'am. The younger of the two Midoriyas quickly sprung to his feet and followed her. Her cooking was far too good to miss, though he was surprised she even wanted to cook. I guess doing something normal might be a comfort. As they walked, Midoriya could only wonder what the next day would hold. He had All Might in the afternoon, he was certain. The pro hadn't revealed what class he was teaching, but Midoriya didn't need to be a super genius to figure it out. There had only been 2 jobs open at UA in the past 2 years, one for a teacher of the main hero course classes and the cooking assistant role Nizu had mentioned earlier. As amusing as the thought of his mentor in a pink apron frolicking around in a kitchen handing out lunches with his bright cheery attitude was, Midoriya doubted the man would have taken on the role. Besides, all the blood he coughed out regularly would probably disqualify him. So All Might had to be teaching hero work. He yawned as they approached the new building they were to stay at. Wow, it had been a long day. As his mind wondered what his mentor would actually be teaching them tomorrow, practical exercises or theory? Rescue? He hoped it was rescue, it was why he became a hero. That and having to fight someone like Bakugo would be exhausting when he'd already had his first serious fight. He rubbed the back of his neck as he watched his mom get acquainted with the kitchen appliances, grabbing some of the currently limited food to cook. I hope noodles are okay, sweetie? Yeah, that's fine. Midoriya muttered as he fiddled with his shirt. Oh yeah, he hadn't had a chance to change yet. Idly he considered the next day as steam started to rise from a pot, so long as he didn't have to fight Bakugo, tomorrow would probably be fine. When Midoriya walked into school the next day, having been waiting impatiently to leave his new home, he had been the first to arrive. He wasn't used to not having to be up super early to get to school, so he had had a lot of time to kill and no real way to do it. Ida had walked in a few minutes after the greenette and had been quite surprised at his presence, but made polite conversation with him while they were both alone. He didn't reveal too much to the blue-haired teen, wanting to leave the news of what had happened until all his friends were in one place. Eventually Yaoyorozu joined them and Midoriya froze for a moment when he saw her. Don't repeat your Uraraka mistake, he thought as he stood up to talk to her, asking her outside. Ida raised an eyebrow, but Midoriya just shook his head at him. He wasn't sure if Yaoyorozu would want anyone to know what she did. When they were outside the classroom, the greenette looked around and was satisfied to see no one else there to eavesdrop on them. Is something the matter? Midoriya the raven-haired teen began to ask before she was suddenly enveloped in the boy's arms without a word. A squeak escaped her lips from the sudden embrace before the Omnitrix bearer pulled away and turned to walk inside. Now we're even, he said with a slight smirk, while his mind screamed at him internally. And thanks. I really needed it yesterday. Why was it, whenever the greenette wished for something, it was ripped from him as soon as the universe got the chance? Before him All Might had stood, a more forced smile than his usual one on his face and a card in his hand that read out combat. It was combat training. Because of course it was. It was also fighting against Bakugo because again, of course it was. You'll be in teams of 2, a set of heroes versus a set of villains. The hero teams will attempt to locate and confiscate a nuke and or capture the 2 villains. The villains merely need to detain the heroes first to win or wait out the time limit. To the capture end, you'll all have some capture tape provided. Are you ready to go beyond, you bunch of newbies? Midoriya sighed as he eyed up the building as All Might handed Uraraka a map of the floors. You'll have to locate the bomb yourself. Now go be heroes you too. The blonde laughed jovially, though it sounded a little off, then he seemed to remember something at that moment. All right, young Midoriya, a word. He looked up to the man surprised and followed him just out of Uraraka's audible range. Yes, All Might? I know you are most likely considering using Blink, a smart strategy to be sure, but I must request you don't. It won't come off your score, I just need you to do this, okay? The new teacher requested, and before Midoriya could answer he let out another boisterous laugh. Alright, great. Break a leg, my boy. And with that the pro took off, leaving Midoriya with his friend. So, what's the game plan, Deku? The brunette questioned with a determined smile as she held her fists up, bouncing on the balls of her feet. I'm guessing we're not using Goliath? Haha, no. Midoriya laughed nervously as he borrowed the map from her, noting it mostly consisted of thin hallways. Can't use Colossus either then. Hey, you okay? You look like me when I overuse my quirk. Well. Midoriya gulped as he continued to formulate a plan in his head. Using Brainiac against Kakin would be suicide. Maybe. It's just, we're up against Kakin and I've never fought him in a fair fight before. He's an amazing fighter though, there's no doubt about that, and he has years of experience on me. Oh, well then, you just gotta show him that you're just as capable despite the gap then. I know you can do it. The girl cheered him on, placing a hand on his shoulder, and a soft smile was brought onto his face with it, recalling Nizu's words from the previous day. What do you mean unfair fights though? He used his quirk to attack me before I had any way to fight back. I haven't even fought any human villains since I got the watch. He admitted without thinking about it, missing the girl's horrified look. Colossus, Pyroform, Goliath are all out due to property damage they would cause. Blink was banned basically, and Brainiac would be a bad idea if I get caught. The rest are just mostly ineffective, there is one. He pulled up the Omnitrix and went through the transformations, landing on top of one. He stared at the silhouette that seemed to be breaking up. Goop. Logically speaking, or rationally as Mr. Aizawa would put it, he's probably my best bet after Blink. He can take everything Kakin will throw out with ease, and unlike the sludge villain, don't have to worry about being torn apart. Hell, I could easily take out Ida as well, gunk up his engines. He's the best for this situation. The exam will begin in 10 seconds. Prepare yourselves. He went to push the dial down. Uraraka looked forward determined, and he acknowledged no alien could compare. I can't breathe. You're a real hero to me, kid. What the hell, why are you here? A buzzer went off. He twisted the dial before he pressed in. So who's this guy? Uraraka asked after the flash died down. You used him in Aizawa's test, right? The bulky form he now resided looked down at the girl, glowing yellow eyes meeting brown curious ones. Crystal eyes. His power is basically Todoroki and Kirishima's combined with crystals. As he said this, he placed a hand on the wall and a sheet of blue crystal went up to the second floor window, platforms jutting out for them both to climb. Oh cool. Come on. If we use the middle floor we can locate them easier, most likely. The bulky alien said as he climbed with surprising elegance and speed. But Kogu doesn't like being told what to do. It's pretty much guaranteed he'll try to run off and attack us. So we're gonna use that to our advantage, right? The brunette questioned as the crystal being offered her a hand, helping her through the window. He then put a finger to his non-existent lips, to signal they had to be quiet. Yeah. When he attacks us, you can run to where he came from and try to find Ida. I'll join you as soon as possible, but... The greenette felt the ground beneath him shake, just the slightest bit. I'm going to have to deal with him somehow first. As if waiting for his cue, the blonde blasted around the corner and flew at them. Midoriya grabbed Uraraka and quickly threw her behind him as he lifted a shield of diamond that quickly turned into a box. If I can just trap him, dash. He didn't. The blonde suddenly flew around the side, blasting the turn in the face. Ha, that tickles. Deku. Go Uraraka. The teen said calmly as Bakugo rushed at him again. I'll be fine. No you fucking won't be AGHSH. Midoriya couldn't be bothered with this, and punched the blonde in the face, throwing him back. Man, I needed that. I know I'm not going to be able to avoid a fight, Kaken, so let's do this properly. He said simply. You can keep calling me Deku, but from now on, it'll be the name of a hero. The explosive teen let off a blast in his frustration, Uraraka having slipped past the two in the blonde's last attack. Need him to come at me. Kakun. You keep saying you're the best. That no one could beat you. Midoriya let his voice drop, though his confidence in himself wasn't as good as his words portrayed him. You can't beat every power, Kakun. You can't stop everything. That did it. The blonde's eyes lit up with rage, his palms following with the light of an incoming blast. Midoriya smashed one band into the ground, his other taking the form of sort of mallet of crystal. It had been coming since Midoriya had gotten the Omnitrix. He knew it. It was time he proved Bakugo he was good enough for UA. He uttered a single phrase under his breath to try to bolster his own confidence. It's hero time. Deku. Crystal Eyes rolled his glowing eyes as the blonde rocketed forth with his blasts, aiming to hit one point blank to the alien's face. Midoriya didn't block, taking the hit without a second thought. Bakugo's eyes widened in brief surprise when the smoke cleared to reveal him undamaged before he snarled. I'm gonna kill you, bastard. You really need better banter. Midoriya commented as he rushed forward, dragging his hands across the floor as he went, trying to encase the blonde. Unfortunately, the explosive teen seemed to read the attack, blasting himself backwards out of the way, before rushing in for another assault. Crystal Eyes grinned, foregoing his crystal manipulation for a solid punch to the gut, knocking Bakugo back as he tried to explode the hand. He's got too much pride to accept it, but he isn't strong enough to blast my crystals apart and he'll think of running away as showing weakness. The greenette sprinted forth to the explosive teen rolling across the ground, grabbing him by the scruff of his neck and launching him backwards, throwing him into a wall and trying to encapsulate him once more. This time it worked, trapping the blonde. It didn't hold. Unlike the living being, the crystals he made weren't as impenetrable, allowing Bakugo to free himself. Kakun, a normal victory will mean nothing here. Not for what I know I need to do, not for what you need to happen, not for what All Might wants, sorry, but I need to take a page out your book for once. He rushed forth, arms turning into crystal hammers as the blonde launched at him again. Midoriya didn't waste time this go around, smashing the first hammer into the boy's guy and knocking him upwards before sending back once again. The blonde twisted in the air, blasting away this time and rolling onto his knees. He didn't move immediately, instead looking around. Then he shot above Midoriya, blasting apart the roof and sending it all crashing down atop the alien before coming back for a surprise attack. Midoriya barely reacted in time, headbutting the teen and sending a wall of crystal up, replacing the roof entirely and coating the rest of the room in the material. Guess, you still have your tenacity. I thought you'd still be worried about the structural integrity of the building, due to your assignment. Bakugo snarled as he rushed forth again. I'm not that surprised you'd do this. The blonde's eyes flashed with a mix of annoyance and confusion as the hulking alien started sprinting forward, eyes filled with a long-built and suppressed anger. After all, any excuse to hurt the quirkless bastard, right? A solid crystal right hook lifted Bakugo off his feet. Any excuse to bully people weaker than you. To sate your ego. Another punch straight to the gut, without a shred of remorse. Any excuse to act like a villain. That's what you always did. He grabbed the blonde by the head, like a ragdoll as he stomped his foot into the ground. Crystal shot forward fast and Bakugo struggled to no avail. This is what it's like on the other side, Katsuki. This is what it's like to be weak. The alien teen stepped out of the way of the incoming barrage as it collided with Bakugo, smashing into the wall. The alien wanted to scream. I hate this. I hate doing this. I hate being this. Boom. Midoriya scowled as the blonde another escape. He had hoped he'd drilled the lesson in. Judging by the shocked and angered look on his once friend's face. Maybe he had. I'm not weak. The blonde screamed, almost pitifully as he launched forward, faster than any time before. Midoriya tried to block, but before he could, Bakugo was upon him. No explosion went off, instead the explosive teen reached out and ended the transformation, using the same taps the boy usually did, to the greenette's surprise. A flash occurred, then the suddenly shaking and terrified form of Izuku stood before Bakugo, who growled like a feral demon. Catch dash. Boom. 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 Bakugo rushed forward, landing blow after blow. He grabbed Midoriya's arm, smashed his face into the crystal, then pulled back and punched the teen in the face once more. He flipped the boy over, stomping on his stomach before blasting the ground beneath him. He lifted him up and threw him into the wall, pinning him by the throat and placing his other hand over the teen's face, ready to send him to Kingdom Come. Bakugo Katsuki. If you even threaten an assault like that again, you will be expelled immediately. A hero does not try to kill their opponent. Are you okay, young Midori Dash? Hahakuka the greenette started to laugh before coughing up blood, causing the blonde to loosen his grip slightly. The fuck are you laughing at, Dash? You proved my point. You didn't beat. Crystallize, you just pulled me back to sate, your ego. The greenette coughed, then he turned to Bakugo with a shaky bloody grin. By the way, pinning me against a wall, threatening me, doesn't this seem familiar? Katsuki's eyes lit up in worried understanding as his head turned to the watch, which glowed up for a moment before letting out a violent shockwave that threw him off course and let Midoriya drop down into the light, hiding him. Another green flash went off, and when the light cleared, Midoriya almost felt guilty upon seeing the brief spike of fear in his bully's eyes. He hadn't really thought about who he was turning into, brain reeling from almost being knocked unconscious, or killed, by the blonde. He still hated the idea, but now it was too late. I call this one goop, he said in his weird wiry voice as the metal disc flew above his head. I wasn't planning on using this, but you just had to prove me right. Bakugo seemed to freeze up, and Midoriya seized his opportunity, rushing forth and grabbing around the blonde, expanding his form as the explosive teen started to struggle inside. Explosions went off, splattering the goop off him from his immediate spot, but it ultimately didn't help much as Midoriya reformed. It only took a moment for the hallway to become flooded with the green substance of his body before he materialized, arms within it, punching at Bakugo and dragging him against the wall. When he finally connected, the goop all quickly dissipated until only the alien's regular form and a patch of stickered goo holding Bakugo to the wall remained. Now to find Dash. Idiot. I'm all filled up. Bakugo suddenly said, and Midoriya turned in surprise to see the boy's gauntlets glowing. Whatever that means, that can't be good. You're a damn stalker, Deku, you know how my power works by now. The teen's grin turned malicious as he managed to slip the gauntlet off and throw it to the floor, clearly still active. I secrete nitroglycerin like sweat that I can set off. And my gauntlets have been storing them all for a monster blast, easily 10 times what I'm able to. The goop alien recoiled as the implications rushed through his brain. That could take the whole building down. Bakugo, you insane idiot. He rushed forward, completely encasing the gauntlet in his goop and doing his best to contain it when it went off. The green slime turned yellow as he rapidly expanded, getting wider and wider until... Pop! Slime splattered everywhere, some flying out the window. Over the speakers, the rest of the class could be heard shouting out in shock and worry as All Might's voice came through. Bakugo. Last warning. One more attack like that and you'll fail. Yawned Midoriya, are you Dash? Before the pro could finish, the goop suddenly started twitching as the flying disc from before flew past at breakneck speeds. It started reforming the alien, who quickly rushed forward, stealing the blonde's other gauntlet away and gunking that up as well with enough goop to prevent it going off. He then reinforced the goop trap Bakugo was in without a word and transformed back into his human state, glaring. Even for you, that was too far, you idiot. Midoriya shouted as he punched the blonde in a fit of anger, before he turned and dialed through his now red-colored watch. Good luck getting out. That adhesive is near indestructible. With that he ran as the blonde cussed him out, but Midoriya ignored him as he trembled with his own anger. I knew he was prideful, but he could have killed us. What the hell was he thinking? Was he thinking? He shook his head, looking through all the rooms. If my mental count isn't wrong, there's about 5 minutes left. Just enough time for one last transformation. Doesn't matter if I find Ida and Uraraka either way, I think I did what All Might wanted, I can use Blink now. He frowned as he considered his teammate. I would have thought you would have checked in by now or reported something, unless. He felt around his ear and scowled as he realized his earpiece was gone. Must have lost it in the explosion. He picked up his pace, looking down at his watch. Still got a charge. He looked back and frowned. Even if he breaks free now, he can't catch up in time to stop me. Still, hopefully that's the last time I have to use Goop. Beep. The frown turned to a grin as he pulled up the watch, Blink's silhouette showing up on the watch. And like that, it's over. He pressed in the selection and once again he was in his favorite alien's body, rushing away to finally finish up the exercise. A second passed. He'd scanned the building and found the room Ida and Uraraka were in. He let himself stop for a moment, and saw a look of surprise and defeat cross Ida's face. Another second passed and the three were all outside, Ida handcuffed to the bike racks, Uraraka left blinking in the confusion and the weapon in the street, Izuku leaning against it in his normal form with a small smile. The hero team wins. Can you all be any more incompetent? Every probe, a failure. S. Sir Dash. Enough. The alien stood up from his chair, squid-like face glaring at the screen. While you continually failed, I did my own research. On one of the screens, a video feed showed up, showing a man with decapitated hands covering his body and another man with black, mist-like skin. These earthlings are planning to attack the Bratz school soon. Seeing as none of you can do anything properly. He stomped forward, smacking the soldier aside. I'll use it as a diversion and do it myself. It's time Izuku Midoriya learns to fear the name Vilgax. The hero team wins. With the loud announcement from his boisterous mentor, Midoriya let out a sigh of relief as he made his way over to Ida and Uraraka, freeing his taller friend. What just happened? How'd we get out here? Uraraka exclaimed as she looked around in surprise, noting the fake bomb in the street and her partner. Deku? Was that you? Yeah. Sorry about the shock, but I knew I only had time for one more transformation left, so I did what I had to. Midoriya explained, offering a hand to Ida, who took it gracefully. Quite impressive, Midoriya. We really should talk about that particular alien together, he makes my abilities look like child's play. The proper teen admitted as he crossed his arms. However, I must admit I'm surprised it took you so long to use it. I don't think we would have been able to defend against him with our quirks, if Bakugo even tried, that is. I was going to originally, but... Midoriya frowned slightly as he looked up to the floor his once friend was likely still stuck in. He didn't really feel like explaining their history just yet. All Might suggested I try to avoid using him straight away in most exercises. Considering how many other aliens I have on hand, it would be better if I got equal experiences with them all. A wise decision. A single skill to define you would make you an easy target for certain villains indeed. Ida nodded, agreeing with the idea. Ha ha ha. Well done, students. Especially you two, young Midoriya and Ida. The voice of All Might came and the three looked up to see All Might coming to bring them back. His usual smile then dropped to a frown. Still, I'm going to have to insist you go to the nurse's office, Midoriya. Huh? The brunette and blue-haired teen both looked between the two with questioning glances. Midoriya sighed, knowing the man was right, his head still hurt. Young Bakugo will be reprimanded properly for his behavior. He may have been acting as a villain, but that doesn't excuse the brutal assault he pulled. You may have a concussion. Yeah. I'll go, I think I know where it is. Midoriya said as he started to walk. Allow me, Midoriya. I'll make sure you get there safely," Ida announced as he marched forth, causing the boy to grin a little. "Take young Yaoyorozu with you as well, so she can describe what happened from an outsider's perspective," All Might called after them. The two walked in silence, Ida not pressuring his friend to talk. Midoriya could feel the boy's curiosity and worry despite it though. "He made me turn back," the greenette blurted out as they got close to where the class were watching. He managed to get close and then he began to attack. Ida was silent for a moment, as if contemplating. If there is worry about a concussion, how vicious was the attack dash? Midoriya didn't get a chance to answer, as they walked into the observation room at that moment and everyone seemed to speak up at once. "Yo, Midoriya? You okay, dude? That was horrific. Seriously, I thought he was trying to kill you." Midoriya almost stumbled back as everyone crowded around him, looking between them all without any idea what to say. Fortunately, Yaoyorozu was quick to rescue him. "Everyone please, back up. He clearly needs some space," she commanded and everyone listened, backing away. Her own features then softened as she got just a little bit closer herself. "Shouldn't you be going to the nurse's office?" "We are, but All Might requested we bring you along as well as to explain what happened," Ida explained quickly and the girl nodded, following them out. "Smart. Let's go." "Hope you're okay, man," Kirishima said as they made their way out. "We'll put in 100% just like you did." At that, the Omnitrix bearer couldn't help but grin. The checkup didn't take too long, with Yaoyorozu willing to do most of the talking. As soon as Ida heard about what occurred, his face turned to one of horror and appall. The greenette also learned the phrase "unprotected skull smashed against solid crystal" was a great way to send Recovery Girl, the little old lady that was the nurse, into a frantic assessment. She also said something about All Might being an utter oaf. Ida was sent back to the class, however Yaoyorozu was kept while Recovery Girl pulled out some kind of camera-like device. She apparently wanted the raven-haired girl present in case she spotted any other injury. In all, it only took about 15 minutes, with the woman concluding that there would just be a few nasty bumps, but that was it, nothing worth employing her healing quirk over. "I hope that man has the sense to punish that boy properly. Now off with you two, you still have class." The elderly woman shooed them off and the two were left to walk alone back to their class. They had made it halfway back by the time Yaoyorozu spoke up, an HPF concern in her voice. "Midoriya?" The greenette looked up to see her fidgeting slightly, as if debating what she wanted to ask. "You and Bakugo knew each other, right? Before UA?" she questioned, turning to face him. He sighed and nodded his head. "Yeah. We were actually really close once, before he got his quirk," the teen admitted as he looked on ahead. Then he started declaring himself better than everyone, and anyone who even dared talk about him wrong was fair pickings. Because I'm quirkless, I was always his preferred target. That's the way he acts. It's insane someone like him wants to be a hero," Yaoyorozu muttered, the teen just barely hearing it. Then she turned to face him, with sad eyes like a kicked a puppy. "That's not right. Was it common for you to get hurt like this? Just because you didn't have powers?" "I mean, I always tried to stop people bullying others, so I guess it's kind of my own fault," Midoriya admitted with a sigh, scratching the back of his head and wincing when he hit a sore spot. "Today was a little more extreme than what he'd normally do, but it's not the worst I've ever dealt with. Just another thing dash." At that, the taller girl suddenly turned to face him, hair falling front of her face from the sudden movement as her gaze hardened. "You shouldn't have to put up with it at all, especially for doing the right thing." The greenette, caught off guard, had no idea what to say as his classmate's gaze seemed to imbue a feeling of content within him. So he did the first thing he could think to do. He reached out and brushed the hair that had fallen forward behind her ear, before immediately cursing himself out as he turned into a blushing mess. Sorry. I shouldered. It's just as off the strand and it looked like it was in thu and dim realizari please don't the team. He continued mumble at speeds that could make Blink jealous when the girl, with her own light blush, reached forward and did the same with a strand of hair he hadn't noticed. There, now we're even. The girl said, before turning and walking ahead while Midoriya cussed himself out. He quickly caught up and the two made it class. A few eyebrows raised at their reddened faces and Midoriya groaned as his mentor's eyes reached his, suggesting a lot of teasing was to come later. Looking around, the boy noted that Bakugo was nowhere to be seen. He found out later the boy was sent to Aizawa to discuss proper behavior in an exercise, as well as serve detention. The rest of the class and the day passed quickly. Midoriya quietly analyzed all his classmates as they thought, amazed by all their powers and prowess. He ended up missing Kirishima's match during his checkup but got to see the rest, and man was the class he and impressive. He noted the skills and techniques of his classmates and where they could improve, and he even learned that Yaoyorozu was quite the analyst herself, as the two almost ended up doing All Might's job after every match, debating the performance of their classmates. Neither of the two noticed the amused looks they got from it. The rest of the day passed quickly, with only two fairly easy classes left afterwards. After that, they had returned to class and started packing up, some people rushing out go home while others stayed behind to talk. Midoriya ended up in the latter category as Kirishima stayed behind to meet others and insisted the greenette do the same. He found out why when a large group of his classmates crowded around his desk, consisting of a black-haired boy with massive bulges where his elbows should be, a girl with bright pink skin and hair, a boy with yellow hair and a black electric strips through it, and finally a girl with green hair slightly darker than his own. Hey I'm Siro Hanta at your service. Mina Ashido, and oh my god dude, your aliens are so cool, . I'm Kaminari, the best ladies man this side of Japan . Like oh my god, the big massive diamond dude looks super terrifying in one way but awesome in another . I'm Tsuyu Azui, but just call me Tsu. And like I know what it's like to be called an alien, so like we totally have that in common. Midoriya grinned nervously as he looked between them all, but a quick tap on the shoulder and a confident smile from Kirishima pushed him forward to introduce himself. I'm Izuku Midoriya. It's really nice to meet all of you, he said, giving them his brightest smile. There was silence for a moment before Ashido suddenly squealed. Oh my god, he's super pure as well, she said excitedly as she took a seat on the desk in front of them, grinning widely herself. The boy blushed at the compliment, causing the others to laugh. So then Midoriya, bro, don't leave us wondering, who were the guys you used in the exercise? Kaminari questioned with a grin. We saw two of them with Aizawa's tests. Oh. Well, the one I used right at the start, I call him Crystallize, I think you can all guess why. He laughed, and the others nodded their heads in understanding. To put it simply, he can basically create crystals and manipulate them like Todoroki can manipulate his ice, though because my body is made out of crystals in that form, I can also kind of shapeshift my body somewhat if need be. The crystal is also really strong, like the ones that come off me are slightly weaker so they can be destroyed with enough force, but while they're still a part of my body, they're near indestructible. Near? Azui questioned, finger to her chin in thought. So it can still be broken eventually then? Yeah, the level of force needed makes it pretty hard to do though. That explosion thing Kaken tried to pull, at an estimate I'd guess I could probably take about 10 or so of them before it started tearing me apart. Whoa! That's super impressive, Kaminari said with a thumbs up, and Kirishima laughed, patting his friend on the shoulder. Super manly, and if we were picking our own favorites I'd so have to say that he's probably my choice. The redhead chuckled, hardening his own skin for a moment. What about the one at the end that finished it all? That's your favorite, right? Heh, why yeah. Blink, I call him. Basically he's super fast, and not just physically, I can also think faster, react faster and... He scratched the back of his head, recalling his outburst at Aizawa. Process emotions faster. Last I checked, I clocked somewhere about 700 miles per hour on average? The group's collective jaws dropped, and even Ida, who was passing by, inserted himself into the conversation, Yaoyorozu and Uraraka just behind him. 500? Midoriya, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that's a world record. The greenette blinked in surprise before thinking through all the speed-based heroes he knew. He blinked as he realized the teen was right. Oh yeah, Femto is the fastest known hero in the world and he only clocks a little above 400 miles. And for people not good at maths, that means? The pink-skinned girl asked, looking between them. Yaoyorozu was quick to answer. It would take a regular human about 17 days to run around the entire coastline of Japan, with no breaks at maximized running speed. Assuming Midoriya was going at exactly 700 miles per hour, it would take him less than 2 days, and that's assuming that's the highest speed he can get. Her eyes seemed to narrow as she considered something. Is that the highest speed you can achieve, or just as far as you let yourself go? Let myself go. I think I'm able to go faster, but I know what will happen if I do. He explained, and at the blank look he received from most of the class, he grinned nervously. When a moving object on the ground goes above 760 miles per hour, it breaks the sound barrier. Which results in basically a massive explosion that would cause a bunch of property damage and anyone too close to go completely deaf. Oh wow. You're alien really or something else? Mina laughed nervously. Then her eyes lit up as she looked up. That goop one was probably my favorite though. Reminds me of my own acid a little. The greenette froze up as he heard that, looking away and causing the rest to look at him with worry. You okay, dude? Kirishima asked, while Ashido came around into his line of sight. I'm sorry, do you not like that one or something? I didn't mean to make you feel bad. She said worriedly, and Midoriya winced, feeling guilty over making her feel bad. It's fine, he said as he turned to face them. It's just, did you hear of the slime villain incident? Oh yeah, I read about that. Uraraka piped up, before gasping. That wasn't you, was it? Not exactly. Actually it was Kaken. Midoriya said, and the group shared a look at that. Though probably better you don't tell him I told you. But you were on the right track, I was attacked the villain earlier. Fortunately, All Might showed up. Oh, that's a relief. Though, I suppose I can understand how that would make you hesitant to use it. Ida said, nodding along. Yeah. I was actually planning to use him first because of how much his power set was perfect for the exercise, but with it being against Kaken, I think the similarities got to me. He shook his head. It's just something I'll need to learn to get over. Well, you know what, if you ever need a training partner with him, I'd be happy to show you the better side of it all. We did hear you were newer to this than us. The pink girl exclaimed excitedly, throwing her arms around the boy and causing him to blush. And I'll be more than willing to spar with Crystallize, Kirishima said with a grin. The rest all threw in their agreement to train with the boy with any alien with similar powers to their own, leaving him grinning happily. Udata really is amazing. The same group as the previous day walked outside, making their way to Yaoyorozu's limousine when a tired voice stopped them all. Midoriya. Turning around, they came face to face with their homeroom teacher, looking as bored as ever. Remember, you only have 2 hours. Get back here before they're gone. Wait, you're coming back? Kirishima questioned, looking between the two. Midoriya flushed as he remembered the new living arrangements set up. Fortunately, Aizawa was quick to explain. Due to a villain attack that occurred in your classmate's own home yesterday, he and his mother are being temporarily housed in Training City Echo, along with some of the staff who don't typically leave the school. We're allowing him a brief period of freedom to spend time with you all, but he must return as soon as possible. The tired man said, as if reading off a script, before turning and walking away. He did stop for a moment, however, to address the teen himself. You turned back. Like I said would happen. Midoriya prepared for some complaint were the words "I told you so," instead he was surprised by the follow-up. You still won. Well done. With that, the man left, leaving the green-haired teen to deal with his friends who were. You got attacked by a villain? Ida was the first, shouting in surprise. Yaoyorozu followed up next, concern plaguing her features. When did that happen? I didn't see any problem when we dropped you off. The raven-haired girl exclaimed as she looked him over, as if searching for injuries. It's a bit of a long story. Midoriya admitted, before frowning. Now that I think about it, I'd just be making it harder for you to get home if I came along. Nonsense. The creation girl practically shouted, before her face turned red and she went back to a normal volume. I mean, I can just order the driver to take you back. He certainly won't mind as he gets more pay from it. Plus you can't leave us wondering about what happened. Yeah. Totally just wants to know what happened and has nothing to do with the fact the two have some alone time after we all get dropped off. Kirishima snickered quietly, only to get an elbow in the stomach from Uraraka. You're sure? Completely. In the Kanagawa prefecture, a towering figure made its way into a local bar, coming face to face with a man made of mist and another covered in the amputated hands of his family and foes. Tamura Shigaraki. Kirojiri. The two turned with questioning gazes, as a laptop near them sparked and fizzed. All for one. A voice came from the static, harsh and demanding. Who are you? Vilgax. I have a proposition for you all, to help with your plans. He stood up tall, as a small fly buzzed around him. And I'm sure you could use a way into the UA building. The ride back from Yaoyorozu's to U.A in the limo was quiet and the boy felt even more out of place within than when the others were with him. They had all chatted with one another until finally he and the raven-haired girl pulled up to her house alone. The teen's jaw dropped when he saw it was a gigantic estate that looked like it could house the students of U.A within just as easy as the school. The girl hugged him once more and the greenette accepted that was apparently going to become how they parted now, before he climbed back in and Yaoyorozu gave the driver the order to go back to UA. He still had 10 minutes left of his 2-hour period to leave when he got out, and quickly moved to the front to thank the driver. He turned out to be a man in his 50s with stark white hair and a kindly face, a small scar on his lip. The Omnitrix bearer had also been in for a surprise when Tashinori was stood waiting at the entrance for him. There you are, kid. He said, with a wave as the greenette hurried over to him. Then a teasing grin took over with a glint appearing in his sunken eyes. So how'd you get a girlfriend in less than a day of school? Wait, what? It's in nothing like that all might. The greenette stuttered, waving his arms about frantically as his face flushed red. Me and Yaoyorozu barely even know each other. So you're not saying it could happen in future? The lanky blonde grinned as he wiggled his eyebrows a little, eliciting a squeak from his embarrassed successor. The man started to laugh uproariously as he turned to walk back onto school grounds. Man kid, you're far too fun to tease. Come on. He followed after his mentor with a light glare, as they walked towards the practice city. Anything happen with any other girls I can tell your mother about perhaps, young Midoriya? The blonde asked with far too amused a grin for the younger boy's liking. You know, I'm one of the few people who knows your weakness. He suddenly spoke and the blonde's gaze turned curious as the greenette turned to face him, trying to seem intimidating as possible. He ended up looking like a little puppy trying to scare off a bigger dog. I could use it against you if you keep teasing me. The voice crack and shaking of his body betrayed the threat for the ruse it was, and the blonde let out a chuckle. I think I'll take my chances. The blonde said jovially, as they stepped into the faux city and headed towards the apartment block the teen now lived in. In all seriousness though my boy, if you ever do find yourself liking a girl don't let my teasing now dissuade you from coming to me. I'll do my best to help you however I can. So, why were you waiting for me, anyways? The teen questioned and the blonde scratched his neck. Well, someone needed to greet you as soon as you got back, and well, your mother was quite insistent I eat with you both. I told her I didn't want to be a bother, especially seeing as I can't eat that much, but she was, something about that woman can make her seem more terrifying than most any villain I've ever faced. No offense. None taken. When mom thinks someone needs her help, she practically becomes an unstoppable force and immovable object at the same time. The younger of the two laughed as they took the elevator. After that though, I was hoping for us to train together, my boy. After all, now you are into UA, we can set about trying to continue preparing you for One for All. Toshinori said with a thumbs up, and Midoriya nodded. Right, with the villain attack in today's exercise I almost forgot. Midoriya admitted. So what will we be doing? After dinner, we'll just take a simple jog around this city. I need to become more acquainted with these areas anyways, and seeing as you'll likely be using it as a personal training ground, the same applies to you. The lanky man explained, before the smell of some delicious stew came through, enticing both mentor and successor. First though, let's eat. The stew had been a delicious meal as the three all settled into the dining area and talked amongst each other. Midoriya couldn't help the warm feeling that spread when he realized it was like a proper family dinner, something he hadn't had a chance to experience since he was 4. For the most part, Inko fussed over his mentor just as much as she did him, and was just as interested in the going-ons of the blonde's life as she was in her son's. The greenette grinned when All Might was caught off guard by his mother's invite to dinner again the next day at the same time. Of course, he knew it wasn't really an invite as much as an instruction. Inko's sights were now set upon someone to help and feed, and no matter who that person was, by God would they not escape her cooking ladle's wrath. He gave the rest of the staff 6 months before they were all crushed beneath the might of her cooking skills. The next day, Midoriya was once again first to class, followed by Ida and Yaoyorozu, both of whom looked disheveled when they showed up. Apparently the media had caught wind of All Might's employment and had started hounding the entrance and blocking people from getting in. The Omnitrix wielder got lucky being able to avoid them. After that, things had progressed normally for a while, with everyone's performances in their training getting a quick review. Bakugo, you're talented, but you can't continue with behavior like you displayed yesterday if you want to even be considered as a pro. You brought what happened on yourself, so don't go skulking like a child about your lose. Ida, your defense was almost perfect for the exercise, but you kept getting distracted by yourself. In future you need to be a little more alert, but otherwise good job. Same goes to your offense, Uraraka. You just outmatched each other too well to say anything else constructive. Midoriya, you could have ended the whole affair instantly if you really wanted to. However, I understand this was a request from All Might that I agree with, though not for the same reasoning. As such, I can only make sure you understand that you could have done that, otherwise you did well for the situations you found yourself in. Minimizing damage was a majority priority and you pulled that off multiple times. He then moved on to the others, and for the most part parroted the observations of the greenette and the raven-haired girl, just with more flaws and successes tacked on. Then when their guard was down, he had sprung their next important moment on them. Picking a class representative and their co-partner. In but a few short seconds after the announcement, the teenagers had exploded into shouts of me, and fucking .ass looking bitches better pick me. Okay, so maybe that second one was just Bakugo. Midoriya chose not to question what it was even supposed to mean. Instead, he just tried to shrink in his seat and did his best not to meet anyone's eye. For a brief moment he did consider himself doing it, but the part of his brain that still hadn't completely moved on from middle school screamed at him it was a bad idea, setting off mild anxiety just at the idea he might be chosen. So with that, he had been happy to just let whoever got it enjoy it. Of course, he could only curse Ida into mental oblivion when the boy stood up and demanded a democratic vote. He didn't expect to be picked, he just preferred knowing he definitely wouldn't be. He wrote down his vote and cast it off, curious to see how many people voted for themselves. The results were written up quickly, and when he saw the final count, the greenette almost audibly whimpered. Izuku Midoriya, 4 votes. Momo Yaoyorozu, 2 votes. And everyone else was listed as 1 vote or none. The teen looked around, his friends and new acquaintances from the day before smiled at him. Yaoyorozu gave him an especially bright and cheery one. He gulped and did his best to give a shaky smile back. In the back of his mind, he wondered if it was too late to take Bakugo up on his roof dive suggestion from so long ago. Izuku Midoriya is the class president, Yaoyorozu is vice president. Class is about to start, so all you need to know for now is this: you'll need to come up with a plan for what to do regarding class officers and the like. You can think about it over lunch. Maybe roof diving was too extreme. Blink was fast enough to escape without being seen if he transformed in the bathroom, right? Lunch seemed to take forever to roll around and yet also simultaneously arrived far too fast for the greenette. Fortunately, classes that day were easy enough as they were mostly just getting used to their teachers' styles and methods. Unfortunately, it meant his mind wandered and he kept sweating more than a simple speech should cause him to. Wow, it's always so packed in here, Uraraka said between bites of her rice. He and his friends were sitting together, along with Mina and Azui, who had jumped in to join them when everywhere else was full up. Well, with a school like Udata having to share a single cafeteria, that's not surprising, Ida mentioned as he idly poked at his food, letting it cool down a little before he dug in. Beside the greenette, Yaoyorozu let out a small hum of delight as she ate a type of stew that's aroma was oddly familiar, while the Omnitrix wielder tried his best not to make it obvious he was shaking. Are you okay, Midoriya? You look kind of pale. Oh well, before he could explain, a feminine voice cut him off. Izuku? Upon hearing it, his eyes went wide as he whipped around to look up at his mother, who had her hair up in a ponytail and was wearing an apron. The rest of his classmates shared curious and confused looks. Oh, it is you. Mom? He questioned in surprise and flinched slightly when it caused Uraraka to choke on her rice. What are you doing here? Well, in case the whole move thing going on ends up affecting my job too much, Nizu suggested I do a trial run for the kitchen assistant job. She explained quickly, and the younger of the greenettes felt his friends staring at him. As for why I'm over here right now, Lunch Rush insisted I should let you know. He wanted to be left alone with something anyways. Oh. And please forgive my distraction, it's nice to meet you all as well. I'm Izuku's mother. Are you friends of his? The last part was directed towards the group of 6 who'd been eating with him, all of whom nodded. Ida, ever polite and formal, stood up and gave a quick bow first. A pleasure to meet you, Miss Midoriya. I am Tenya Ida and I am proud to call your son a friend. I hope you are finding your time here as exceptional as possible so far. He greeted, with a smile. The woman smiled back with a nod. Uraraka clapped her hands together as she made to introduce herself next, while Ida took his seat once more. Midoriya started to blush lightly. Proud to call a friend, huh? I'm Achiko Uraraka. It's really nice to meet you, ma'am, and if Deck is any indication, then you must be an awesome person. The girl said excitedly with a bright grin, which Inko returned slightly nervously, stealing a glacé at her son upon hearing the nickname. The teen just waved his hand a little, the little sign they had between each other for saying "tell you later," as his face continued to heat up. You said you're here for a trial run? Oh yes. It's a bit of a long story, though I might not be able to keep my old job I used to work because of a recent move. Principal Nizu was kind enough to let me have a trial run as an assistant to Lunch Rush, an extra helper here. The woman explained quickly with a soft smile. Oh, then I hope it works out for you. More Midoriyas can't be a bad thing if you ask me, Kirishima said with a toothy grin, before facing the woman. Midoriya looked away as he tried to not let his face get any worse over the praise. Mina seemed to notice and a devilish grin broke across her face. Ijiru Kirishima, and I gotta say, ma'am, your son's got to be one of the manliest guys I've ever met. Maybe it's a little early to say so, but I can't think of many people like him. I've not known for us as long as those 3, but I can't help but agree. Mina quickly jumped in, happy smile only just betrayed by the teasing glint in her eyes. I'm Mina Ashido, and I really can't wait to get him more. Also, I have to say, I understand why he looks so good now if you're his mother. A noise that was unmistakably a squeak left the greenette's mouth, only to cause him to blush even more. A couple of giggles escaped the others before Inko herself let out a proper laugh at her son's reaction. Yaoyorozu placed a hand on the boy's shoulder for support, but even she was clearly chuckling. Well, that's quite sweet of you, though I'm just an old woman at this point, no need to try to flatter me, the woman said between giggles. Azui was the next up to talk. I don't think it's flattery if it's true, she said, completely matter-of-factly, causing the older woman to blush herself. Anyways, I'm Suyu Azui, though my friends just call me Tsu. I wouldn't mind counting your son as one of those people. And nice to meet you. The woman stuttered out, caught off guard by the frog's blunt statement. A quick shake of her head and she managed to compose herself quickly enough. And good luck with the name part, it might take a while to get Izuku to get over his own manners for that. With that said, there was only one person left to introduce. The girl beside Midoriya seemed to move to introduce herself, but she was unable to start before the older woman let out a surprised gasp. "Oh, you must be Yaoyorozu," she exclaimed as her eyes widened slightly. The rich girl's own eyes did the same, stealing a quick glance at the boy before back at his mother. "You've heard of me?" "Midoriya talked about me, but not Ida or Uraraka?" The creation quirk wielder questioned and confused, and Inko shook her head. "No. Actually, she cut herself off quickly as Midoriya glared, unsure how else to convey to her to be quiet before her tongue slipped. Fortunately, she caught on just in time and redirected herself. "All my son mentioned was just that he got a ride home from you. He would have talked about all of you, I'm sure, if it wasn't for the whole having to fight a villain thing leaving him tired and not exactly rushing to explain." Upon hearing the part about a villain, both Mina and Azui looked at the greenette in surprise. Right, they don't know. Ah, well, that makes sense. Well, it's as you guessed, I am Momo Yaoyorozu and I feel I must apologize to you, the girl said, standing up and bowing ever so slightly like Ida had. Both Midoriyas looked at her confused. She met the older woman's gaze with hints of regret in her eyes. "I was with your son in the parking lot to your apartment when I left him. I should have stayed considering what happened. I am truly sorry I wasn't there to help." "Oh. Please don't feel guilty," Inko said with a small frown. "There's no way you could have known. In fact, I should be thanking you for getting Izuku home. You didn't have to do that." "Still, I am sorry. Please let me know if I can do anything to make it up to you," the girl requested, and the plump woman only needed a moment to consider before a bright smile grew on her face. "Well, you could tell me how that stew tastes," she requested while beaming at them, before shifting her gaze over to Mina. "You too, Ashido, you're eating it as well." "The stew?" the tall girl questioned, surprised before turning smiling despite her confusion. "Well, honestly, it's probably one of the best meals I've ever ate, which is surprising all things considered, even if it is lunch rush's food." Midoriya's eyes widened. "That's where I recognize it from." "It's not lunch rush's actually," the mother said with a laugh. "It's actually my own food. He made me add a fiat of my own, and stews are one of my few specialties." "Really? Then you're an amazing cook, Miss Midoriya," Mina said within awe. Inko blushed a little again but shook her head with a smile. "Not really, it's just one type of food." The woman laughed, before looking back towards the kitchen. "Anyways, it was nice to meet you all, but I am still supposed to be on a trial run, so I better get back in there. He should be done by now. I hope you all have wonderful days." With that, she turned and walked off, leaving Midoriya to face his friends. "So that was your mother? She seems like a very wonderful person," Ida said with a smile, starting to eat his food. Mina walked around the table as everyone got back into conversation again and walked up to the greenette. "Yes, Ashid MPHH." He didn't get to finish as the pink-skinned girl slapped her hands onto his cheeks and held him in place, eyes the most serious he had seen them so far. "Midori. You need to get your mother on the staff. That stew is too good," she said simply, holding him in place. "Understood?" He nodded, and the girl smiled slightly. She didn't let go. Can I have my faith back?" "Oh. Right, sorry," she giggled nervously before letting him go and returning to her seat. Ida shook his head as he looked up to the greenette. "By the way, Midoriya, you didn't get a chance to say, why were you shaking?" the blue-haired teen asked, and he scratched the back of his head. Honestly, I'm really nervous about the whole class president thing. I can't believe anyone voted for me. I think I'm a terrible choice. The boy explained and Ida shook his head. Nonsense. You are able to think well under pressure, come up with winning plans even when you've been restricted and you have others' interests at heart. That's the traits of a leader. Ida listed off without missing a beat. At least, that's why I voted for you. If you truly still feel overwhelmed by it, I'm always willing to lend a hand if you need, and Yayarozu will be more than willing to help as well. Hearing that, as well as all the praise from everyone earlier, had helped settle the quirkless teen a little. He took a moment to ponder over the idea. He still very much found it daunting, almost nauseating to consider, but if everyone had faith in him then he couldn't let them down. Looking up, his gaze became determined. Well, I think we do need to make one change, if Mr. Aizawa will let us. You want to switch places? And you're sure about this addition? The scruffy, tired pro asked, looking between the two. Yes, sir, I don't want to cast off any responsibilities, but I personally believe I am not of the right mental state to be in a proper leading position. The brunette explained simply, looking at Ida and Yayarozu behind him. They had returned to class a little early to make their request. Fine. I think it's a waste of time, but if the class agrees then I'll go along with it. The man said. Midoriya, you're now vice president. Ida, Yayarozu, you're joint class president. The three smiled between each other. They'd need to explain to their class, of course, but they voted Izuku in the first place, so he could only trust they'd accept his judgment. He knew he couldn't handle being the class president, so he wanted to trade place with Yayarozu and to have Ida ready to replace him if needed. Hopefully it wouldn't be necessary. He hadn't intended Ida to be joint main president, but seeing as neither he or Yayarozu objected to Aizawa's decision, he didn't call it out. The class had been a little confused at first when Ida had stood beside the two presidents at first, but, in between a stuttering introduction, Midoriya managed to explain it. Basically, I get you guys decided on me, so I want to do my best to respect that, but I am also worried I'm going to mess it up pretty bad. Basically, if I can't handle it like I'm worried I might not be able to, I think he should replace me. The brunette explained. I am picking Ida specifically because he was the one who managed to get us all under control earlier and came away with a fair system to pick in the first place. Hey, so basically you're looking out for us and yourself at the same time. Kirishima said with a grin. And I can totally vouch for Ida as substitute, so I'm fine with that. Heh, you kinda already just made a good decision to prove you should be class president with this, in a funny kind of roundabout way. A boy with a strong fluffy tail for a quirk called Ojiro said, chuckling lightly. I can get behind it. Mina put in next, simple but supportive. Aizawa's sleeping bag rustled and the man caught everyone's attention. Good. You all accept it. Now let's move on. We have rescue training with 13 and All Might tomorrow, and I'd like all this to be done by then. He explained, before slumping back over as if he'd never awoken in the first place. All right. Midoriya muttered, and Yayarozu stepped forward. Well, first, we need to choose a few class officers. As hands flew up repeating the earlier chaos of choosing a class president in the first place, Midoriya smiled a little. Maybe it wouldn't be quite as bad as he was expecting. Unbeknownst to anyone within the building, a little fly buzzed around S&D into the teacher's lawn, nestling high up on the wall. Within, two teachers, one tall and lanky with blonde hair and one in a spacesuit, discussed the day that would come tomorrow, sharing maps and names. Both completely oblivious to the alien machine just above them, capturing every detail it needed before it would buzz away, back to the two villains hidden in amongst the media outside. Behind you, my boy. All Might called out in panic as the towering form of Colossus turned to see a muscular creature with black fur, an exposed brain and a beak rushing at him. Without missing a beat, the alien grabbed said beak and threw the monster aside. Suddenly, green electricity burst around him and he cried out in pain before a similarly colored fist collided into his face and stomach. He grabbed the offending fists, ignoring the pains, and looked into the angry red eyes of the villain before him. An alien, amazingly. Give me my Omnitrix, you brat. The squid-like monster demanded. Neither of you have much time left, just give up. Deku. Beep. 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 Huh? Where's your costume, Deku? Uraraka asked as she pinched at her own skin-tight outfit. It wasn't destroyed in training, so I thought it'd be better to go without for now. The greenette explained as he scratched the back of his head, watching Ida and Yayarozu work together to get everyone ready to leave. After all, the only part that served actual function was this utility belt. All my aliens get rid of my clothes, so I thought I'd be as well going with the best outfit I had available, and I'm still not used to the material of that jumpsuit. Oh, I suppose that makes sense. The brunette nodded as the two of them clambered onto the bus, taking them to today's hero training. Rescue at the unforeseen simulation joint. Though it might look a bit weird. Everyone else in costume, then there will just be you in a PE suit. Well, I could just make a gimmick out of loving exercise. The Omnitrix wielder chuckled lightly as he said this, taking a seat in between Ida and Azui, Uraraka sitting across from him with Yayarozu and Kirishima. I thought that would more be Kirishima's deal. Rib bit. Azui put in with stoic face and the redhead pouted, though it was clear there was a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. While his friends continued to talk and poke fun at one another, Midoriya started fiddling with his watch, trying to guess who would be the best for whatever was to come. Maybe I should debut someone new if I have the chance, reverb? Probably a bad idea in a landslide. Maybe Colossus will finally come out? It's been a little too long since I used him anyways. Though probably Midoriya's got one of the best chance out of any of us to go pretty far, considering the fact that his aliens are all super strong in their own right. Not to mention he can be as flashy as he likes. The greenette picked up on Kirishima talking and the redhead hardened his arm into a point. I mean, my hardening can help beat bad guys in a fight easily, but it's really bland next to a full diamond body. Huh? Oh, no way. I think your hardening is super awesome actually. Midoriya shook his head as he realized most everyone in class was listening to them, causing him to blush lightly. He scratched the back of his head as he defended his friend's quirk. Not to mention you can use it at will. I have to decide ahead of time exactly what I'm going to do and then have to do it on a time limit. So I can mess up pretty easily if I accidentally pick Brainiac or something when I need blink. Brainiac? Ida questioned, readjusting his glasses. I don't believe you've explained that one before. Oh, well, he's actually how I got past the entrance practical exam. The Omnitrix wielder revealed and tried to ignore the squeaking of the chairs as half the class seemed to lean in, curious. My aliens aren't really that interesting, are they? I wasn't planning to use him, but I got knocked over by someone and ended up transforming into him against my will. So what is he exactly then? Rib bit. Azui asked, finger to her chin. The teen boy couldn't help the laugh that escaped him. It's actually kind of funny you of all people asked Azui dash. I told you to call me Tsu. Right, sorry. Anyways, it's funny you asked, 'cause the closest thing I can compare him to is a frog. The greenette explained and Yayarozu rose an eyebrow. A bipedal, tongueless frog, but it's really the closest thing I can think of. So what's his powers then? I mean, all your transformations are scary overpowered in some way or another. Ashido asked as she leaned over her seat behind Jairu, practically touching her face against the hearing girl. The purple-haired girl just scowled at the girl invading her space. And how did he get you in then? I thought you turned into a giant. Only at the end, and it's nothing that special, really, he's basically just super smart. Basically, while I'm in that form, I can understand any tech I look at or solve practically any equation thrown my way. I've tried, but there's nothing I haven't been able to not solve in less than 5 minutes as him. He explained, looking out the window to see that they were nearing their destination. He failed to notice Aizawa staring intently at him. I'd originally planned to bash my way through with one of my stronger aliens, but annoyingly he's the only one I can't turn back from. Really, it's an annoying flaw when you're in your least resistant form. You couldn't turn back? Kaminari asked and the greenette nodded. To turn back, like you saw Kaken do in training, I have to press the symbol 3 times in succession. It's a failsafe. I think. So anyways, what I ended up doing was using my smarts to rewire the robots to destroy themselves and attack each other. Oh, that explains why one barreled into another in front of me. Ida muttered and Midoriya chuckled. That has been confusing me for weeks. Whoops. Still, you're probably going to do better than some of us. Ribbit. Bakugo especially I don't see going far, with his attitude. The frog girl commented bluntly and the blonde, hearing in the slight let off a blast as he stood up. The fuck you say, frog brain? See what I mean? Ribbit. The greenette said as she pointed at him, and Midoriya tried his hardest not to grin. They're making fun of Kaken and not me. Alright guys, we're here. Aizawa announced as the bus pulled up. Just go inside, I'll catch up in a moment. 13 will greet you there. Yes sir. Everyone chorused as they stood and made their way out. As they walked, Midoriya felt a pinch on his neck and slapped it instinctively. Checking, he saw nothing and shrugged it off as nothing. He failed to notice the fly-like creature mangled on the ground, metal inside sparking and fizzing. The USJ was massive from the outside, shaped like a giant dome with a tinted glass ceiling and iron supports. Standing in front of it, ready for them all was a pro wearing a white puffy spacesuit was the rescue hero, 13. I can't believe it's really them. I'm a huge fan. Uraraka said excitedly besides the greenette, fists shaking in excitement. I wonder what they'll think of your alien theme with their space theme. I have no idea, I'm just excited to finally be doing rescue training. Midoriya answered with a toothy grin. This is what I've been waiting for. Hello everyone. I'm glad you all could make it. I'm 13 and this is my rescue training facility. The space hero introduced themselves before unlocking the door and gesturing for them all to come in. Step inside and give me your name as you walk in. The class made their way inside, Uraraka and Midoriya near the back of the group. As they walked, the greenette heard a small clang and turned to see his friend about to fall on her face. Quickly he grabbed her shoulders and set her back upright. The brunette let out a sigh of relief and the Omnitrix wielder spotted the culprit, a rock set in the dirt. Thanks, Deku. And no problem. He said, smiling to himself as he remembered how they met in the first place. They made their way inside at the back of the pack. Seeing as everyone else is in, you must be Midoriya and Uraraka. 13 said and the students nodded in reply. The lights on the helmet of the hero's suit seemed to change to resemble a smile. I've especially been looking forward to meeting you too. And it's great to meet you. Uraraka said as she clapped her hands together and beamed. Midoriya echoed the sentiment and felt his jaw drop as they made their way inside. This facility is split into different zones, so different quirks work better in certain areas, but despite that all pros need to be ready for any eventuality. The best pros are able to adapt, even in situations that directly counter them. 13 started lecturing, walking to the front of the group. The entire class seemed to hang on to their every word, missing their homeroom teacher's arrival. And of course, with this being rescue training, I also have to remind you that your quirks and powers are, and will always be dangerous if you use them incorrectly. Take my quirk for example, Black Hole. I may be a rescue hero, but the destructive nature of my power could easily be used to kill. In fact, I believe you witnessed the danger of quirks firsthand in your last exercise. A low snarl sounded from a certain blonde. The teachers ignored it. You'll be training here for 3 hours. You will spend 10 minutes in each area, with 5-minute breaks in between. The space hero announced and a wide grin split across the greenette's face. Couldn't be more perfect. Wait, hang on, wasn't All Might supposed to be here as well? Kirishima asked and the Omnitrix wielder blinked, surprised he missed the man's absence in his excitement. He saw 13 hold up 3 fingers to their homeroom teacher and realization dawned upon him. I saw some headlines this morning about All Might stopping a few crimes on his way to school. Which means, he went past his limit. All Might's still adjusting to his new role as teacher. We all struggled at first to balance hero work and teaching. Alright guys, we should start at the dash. Aizawa began to instruct them, but he suddenly stopped, eyes narrowing in concern. Midoriya, what's happening with your watch? Huh? The greenette pulled up the Omnitrix, confused, and felt his eyes go wide as he saw little green sparks of electricity flying around the now yellow interface. What the ahhhh? Everyone instinctively jumped back, as the electricity suddenly burst around the teen. I can't move. Midoriya! 13 shouted in surprise when suddenly a few of the lights around them went out. Just at the corner of his vision, the greenette could see a swirling purple mass, which multiple people walked out of. No, it can't be. Clunk. Whir. BZZT. Are these the ones who attacked me? Everyone get back. 13, cover Midoriya. This isn't a drill, those are villains. Aizawa's concerned voice rang out, and the greenette would have gulped if he could. Ida, get out and get back up ASAP. Yes, sir. The engine teen said and sounded as if he ran ahead, but Midoriya couldn't be sure. A moment later, though, he definitely could be sure that stairwell they were on was surrounded by the purple mist, and a new voice spoke up. Perplexing. The schedule we retrieved said All Might should be here, yet he's not. A wispy, eerie voice said, that would have made Midoriya shudder if he was capable. Curious? All Might? I thought they were attacking Midoriya? Mina asked, confused. He could practically feel the air around him withering at the laugh that followed. Not by the voice from before, but a new one. Some of us have more important goals to deal with. Thank you, Kurogiri. I'll take the brat now. Midoriya. Deku. Suddenly, the floor disappeared beneath the teen and he crashed into solid ground. The paralysis dropped and he scrambled up, coming face to face with a towering muscular figure. His skin was green and he had tentacles falling over his mouth like a squid. His eyes were angry red pinpricks and he wore metallic brown armor over his body. We finally meet, Midoriya. I am Vilgax, conquering of planets and eraser of millions of species. The creature said, bowing almost mockingly at the introduction. Then he stood up straight again and the greenette felt the unadulterated hate radiating off him. Not just a thug with some powers, but a genuine threat, an actual villain stood before him. A villain. You have something of mine, and I will have it back. A villain he knew wouldn't hesitate to kill him.
That's it for today. Remember to show your support to the creator of this story if you enjoyed it. If you would like more parts of the story to be uploaded, leave a comment and subscribe to get notified when the story continues. Bye-bye for now, and I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day.